My name is Jamie and I am your channel host. Today we are going to be talking about my boyfriend and I. Woohoo! I feel like so many people are so interested in relationships, and that was what God wanted me to talk about today. So I guess we'll go back a few years. Let's start in 2019. So I'm a freelance photographer, and in 2019, I was taking photos of this event staffing company. And at that company, I met one of the wait staff, and his name was Marciel Lee. He was probably like in his 50s, like, you know, an older gentleman. And I was taking photos, just doing my thing. And then he comes up to me and he says, like, wow, like, you're a princess. And then he quotes me this Bible verse from Isaiah, and it says, line upon line, precept upon precept. And I was like, when I first heard it, I was like, what the heck? How did you know that? Because a couple months prior to me meeting him, another prophet, like someone else, had spoken that exact same verse over me, and they were saying, line upon line, precept upon precept, will I learn God's statutes for me? And he was like building my faith a little bit by a little bit. And Marciel said that exact same Bible verse, and I was like, what? Like, how did you read my mind? And so then we started talking, and he was just saying that, like, his son was an international model and like was doing like really cool stuff. And in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Like, this man is a little weird. Like, I don't know how much I should believe you. And so then fast forward to 2021, he asked me to photograph his wedding reception because he had just got remarried. And you know, I go and I photograph the wedding reception, and I meet his son. And his son's pretty cute. Like, his son is really good looking and really tall. And I didn't doubt anymore that he actually, you know, did modeling jobs, because he was a model. And so then I started talking to him, and we just started, you know, chit-chatting. And we found out that we both had the same acting agency. And I was like, whoa, like, no way. And he was like, whoa, no way. And then that was it. Then I left because I was like, he's way out of my league. And like, I don't even know if he's single. And it, like, you know, like, so many times where I'll think someone's cute and I think like something could happen. It doesn't happen. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I don't know. Like, it's probably not him, right? So then I leave. And then fast forward a couple weeks, I get an email from my agent. And this was like, I like had gone to California, and then I come back to Washington. And right as I landed, I got an email from my agent saying, I want you to submit for this job. And I was like, okay, sure. So I submitted, and a couple hours later, I got the job. And underneath my time, like, because there are different talent, there are different different actors who had also booked the same job as me from her agency. And under my time slot, time slot was like 10:30, was 11. And it said Zachary Lee, which is Marciel Lee's son. And I was like, oh, that's strange. Like, usually, like, anyways, I was just like, that's strange. Like, that we would end up booking something together, because that usually never happens where I book something and I know the other person, because it's just, you know, there are so many actors to choose from in this area. So I go and I do my job, and at the end of the job, I see him walk in, and, you know, it was during COVID, so he had his mask on, and I was like, just making sure, you know, I look okay on camera, making sure that, like, if he happened to look, that I was still looking cute. And so then after I finished, I walked over to his waiting area, and we were just talking, and I was telling him, like, yeah, I just got back from California. It was really beautiful. Like, I was so excited to tell him because I had an amazing experience down there. And then he was so, like, nonchalant and like, yeah, cool. Okay. Like, he was so pulled back. And immediately in my mind, I was just like, okay, this guy is not interested in being friends whatsoever. So I left, and I thought that was it. And then, like, somewhere in between, he messaged me and asked me if I could help him with an audition tape. And I was like, that's kind of random, but okay. It was the same audition tape that I had to do. So I actually needed a reader, and it was actually kind of perfect. So I went over to his house and we did the read together, and it was for this Hallmark commercial where, like, he was supposed to be my boyfriend and I was supposed to be like getting a gift from him. And then at the very end, like, I was supposed to like kiss him on the cheek. And so I was just like, oh, okay, well, I wonder if he'd be open for that. And this was just me being really forward. But in the audition, I was like, like, is it okay if I like kissed you on the cheek? Because that's what the audition called for, right? And so then he said no, which was fine, but I just wanted to shoot my shot, right? And so then afterwards, I felt like I was like, well, why don't you, like, ask him to take photos with you, scout location, and just, he was kind of saying, okay, like, he asked you to do an audition with him, and now it's your turn to kind of like the ball is in my court. And obviously throughout this whole entire thing, I was just like talking to God about it and being like, is this okay? Should I go audition for him? Like, it's kind of weird, God. Like, why are you putting us in so many circumstances together? And so then I ended up asking him to to come with me and location scout. I mean, I did want a location scout, but I just wanted opportunity to spend with him. So then we ended up shooting photos, and it was really fun. Like, we just drove around. I learned a lot about him. I was definitely so anxious because I wasn't sure what he thought, and we just we hit it off, and it was fun. We talked about some really deep stuff. About like the salvation of one of my family members, my grandpa, and then just shared a lot of like intimate stuff with each other. And I realized he's like a very philosophical dude. So then that was that, right? So that ended. And then I think like a week later, we both get another job. So I ended up booking a job for Delta Airlines. And then he was on kind of like the holding list, the backup. So we weren't sure if we were gonna work together. But then the day of, lo and behold, one of the main talent, I think he ended up getting sick, and so Zach became the backup for him. And I feel like that usually doesn't really happen because usually if it's like a job, the talent will make sure that they show up. And so then the main talent couldn't do it, and so Zach ends up doing it, and then we end up carpooling down there together because we live pretty close. And on the job, it was like an extra job, so we basically got to spend like 14 hours together. Like, there were snacks, and it was a lot of waiting around and like for our marks, and so we had a lot of time to get to know one another. And it was just crazy because this is, keep in mind, this is our second job where we've booked together within the span of a month. And I felt like I was really anxious and really nervous. I was like, man, God, why are you putting us together? And like, I don't even know this guy. And then God's like, well, here's 14 hours to figure it out. And so then he graciously gave me basically the whole entire night to just get to know him, talk to him. We talked a lot about, just everything. I found out he is definitely single. He wears these rings on his hands, and so when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then one of the other talent asked him, like, what are those rings for? And he just said, oh, like, these are my marriage rings, like one's to Jesus, or actually I think they're both like marriage rings to God. And then, but one says his name on it, and then the other one I think has his name in Hebrew as well. Or it says, my beloved is mine, and I am my beloved's. And so he was just sharing about his faith and kind of how dedicated he was to God. which is something, you know, I really, really like. That was like the number one thing that I desired in a man, was that he would love God more than he could ever love me. And I found that to be really attractive, you know, even more than like his looks. Obviously, I'm physically attracted to him, but it's like he really, really, really loved God, and still really loves and will continue to love him. And so, yeah, we just got to know each other, talked about our testimonies, and yeah, hung out with each other, and we just really clicked off. We clicked off? Is that a thing? I don't know. We clicked. And then afterwards, we booked another job together. I know, this is wild, right? And but this time I was photographing, and then he was like being like a greeter, kind of like the model of the night. And, you know, like we also carpooled there together, and this was our third consecutive job together within the span of a month. And I was just like, okay, like what is going on? So then afterwards we started talking like pretty much not every day, but like two days a week. And it got to a point where we were like talking until like 2 a.m, and he was like telling me some really deep personal stuff. And I was like, okay, do you talk about this with all of your girlfriends? And he says no. And I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? Because I don't want to be sharing stuff, and I don't want you to be sharing stuff if if nothing is gonna happen between us, because I don't want us to get hurt. And well, really, I didn't want to get hurt. And so then I was just basically like, okay, let's define the relationship. What are we doing? Like, what are your intentions? And so we both prayed about it. We like got 3 visions that night, which basically confirmed that that this was what God wanted. I got a vision actually that night of Zach and I. We were like up in heaven, and we were on like a stage, and like God was kind of in the background like a puppet master, but he wasn't moving us. He was just like in the background smiling, and Zach and I were on a stage, and like there were like little children kind of like out just sitting there. And I remember God saying like, this is how Zach and I will glorify him. And to me, I was like, that's pretty good confirmation. And so then we, you know, talked to his parents about it, his dad Marcial and his stepmom Michelle, and it just, it felt like everything clicked. And so that's kind of how we met, how we started. And now I want to talk a little bit about just kind of the type of person that he is, and encourage you guys, if you're still waiting, or if you're like, when is my man, or when is my husband ever gonna, or when is my wife ever gonna come, you know, like what I wish for, or what I wanted in a husband, in my significant other, was that he would love God ever more than he could love he would love God more than he could ever love me, because I knew that if he did that, then God would just tell him everything that I needed, and then he would listen and obey and love me, because God is the only one that can change hearts. Like, no matter how many times I tell him I need this, or like I would appreciate if you did this, like even if it's something that like is really hard for his heart to change, if it's something that requires his heart to change, like I cannot do it. Like God is the only one who can do it, because he's the only one that changes hearts, right? And so and then so after I felt like he met not that desire, everything else, when I look at our relationship, I'm like, wow, we were made for each other. Like, just all your hobbies, all of my hobbies, they align so well. Like our senses of humor, just like the type of person that he is, and all the qualities that he has, I realized there were things that I really wanted, but I was afraid to ask God, or I didn't think that he would, I didn't think that he would give it to me. And so now that I look back, I'm like, wow, he gave me all the desires of my heart. Like Zach is so gentle, so sweet. He is hilarious. He is ambitious. He takes care of his body. He's attractive, which is amazing. And like he's just so patient. He's really gentle, and he listens to the Holy Spirit like no other. He always goes to God before he goes to me. And he's just like, every day I feel like I'm learning to find new things that I like about him and I love about him. And I'm just so appreciative that, you know, in Matthew 6:33, it says, like, if you seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, everything else will be given to you. And like, he was my first relationship. And so up until then, like, I was pretty much focused on like what God wanted me to focus on. And, you know, there'd be dates that he'd be like, well, why don't you do this? And like, go on this, and, you know, get to know that person a little bit. But he taught me a lot about dating through those, you know, even one-off experiences to get me ready for Zach. And yeah, like I you know, sought him and his kingdom, read my Bible, and just got a closer relationship to him. And then in the end, like, Zach showed up when I least expected it, when I was least worried about finding a boyfriend or a future husband. And so I don't know, I feel like I want to encourage like all of you guys who are like still waiting to not worry. Like, if you rush things, at least for me, right? Like, as a Christian, I believe that like God has someone for you. And if you rush things, one, you might just get in the way of God like preparing someone for you, because you might not be ready to have a relationship. Like, before I started dating Zach, I had to go through all this whole season of getting myself, not even just one season, but like entire seasons of preparing my heart, like healing from trauma that I had, and just like rearranging the way that I look at relationships, because it wasn't healthy. And had I met Zach any earlier than I did, I would have made him my God, and I would have like worshipped him, or like just done things that were really unhealthy for both of us. And I don't want that for you guys. And like, you know, it's nice to have like a significant other that you can hold, that you can kiss, that you can like do fun dates with. But it's at the very end, like, if it's not the right person, you'll know. And like, you're only gonna get hurt, because if it's not the right person, then eventually it's not gonna work out, and you're gonna have to like work through all of those relationship ups and downs, and that you've shared with that other person. And you're gonna have to like heal from any trauma, and you're gonna have to like break emotional ties with them, which makes it hard, because, you know, once God has given you the right person, you still have to think about like, okay, like, why do I do things in this relationship? Oh, it's because I've done things in my past relationship that weren't healthy. Now I'm like carrying all that baggage into this like present one, and then you're gonna have to like work through that. And so yeah, like, God has someone for you. And I think, I don't know, like, so many of us tend to like make lists of like all the things that we're looking for. And not to say that's bad. Like, I think it's good to know what you want and like who you're attracted to, and your significant other. But also, you know, if you're a Christian, at the end of the day, like, just really seek God and his kingdom first, and like literally everything will be added to you. Like, if you don't, it's a promise, right? But if you don't do your part, like, you're not gonna get the second. And it's so worth the wait. It's so worth the wait, because I can't imagine forcing another relationship that God didn't plan for me, and just being unhappy and heartbroken in those other relationships. And I think even more so than just figuring out what you desire is asking God, like asking him, like, what do you desire for me to have a husband? What do you desire for me to have in a husband? Like, what do you think would suit me better? Like, suit me the best. Just engage him and tell him, like, yeah, I've waited, or like, I really want a relationship, and just dialoguing with him, because he's gonna reveal to you your heart, right? The Bible says, the Spirit of God knows the intentions and the depths of our heart. And so asking Holy Spirit to reveal to you, why do you want a relationship? What are you looking for in a relationship? And is that good for you right now in this season of life? And why is it so hard for you to wait? Is it because you see everybody else, have a relationship and you feel like you're falling behind, or like you're not complete without a significant other, or that, like you're looking for something that you feel like you're missing in someone else? Because if it's any of those reasons, I feel like you're going to come to find out, one, you're never going to be fulfilled in someone else. Like the other day, I realized as much as I love Zach and as much as he loves me, like at the end of the day, I realized I was like, oh, I'm still unsatisfied. I'm like, wow, this is wild. So many people talk about, you can only find your satisfaction in God and not your significant other. But the other day I felt it. I was like, wow, like I love Zach and he loves me and we have so much fun together, but I'm not satisfied. And it just made me realize, like, if you're not satisfied with yourself right now and with your relationship with God, you're never going to be satisfied with anybody else. Like, even if you find, the most perfect person who fulfills all your needs, who like checks all the boxes, at the end of the day, there's always going to be something missing, because that love is not a love that like passes through God and into them, right? Like Zach always explains to me how our relationship, our love should work is not, so this is me, this is Zach, this is God. This, how he explains it is that it should go from me to God and then God to him, or like me to God, God back to me, and then me to Zach. It always passes through God, because if I love him with my love, it's going to be selfish. It's going to be, it's not going to be perfect. But if I love him through God's love, in the sense where I just connect back to God, and God will tell me things to say, things to do, and that will ultimately be what's most loving for him, not what I think is the best. Because sometimes if he needs comforting, or if he needs, something happens where like instinctually I'm like, oh, like I want to be there for him, I want to do X, Y, and Z. But if I ask God and he's like, no, I want you to wait, like waiting is going to be so much, is going to be the best option than me just running to him and trying to comfort him, because God knows what he needs the best. He knows his heart. I don't know his heart. And so, yeah, so I don't know, just be encouraged. Like, no, God has someone out there for you. Don't rush. Don't get into a relationship just so that you can be in a relationship, so that other people can be like, wow, like you guys are dating. Like who does that serve at the end of the day? Like, no one, except for a momentary time where you feel good and validated by other people. But you have to be complete in yourself, by yourself, with God, before you meet your significant other. I feel like you can, because in order for you to be one, it's like, one of my friends told me this: love is not addition, it's multiplication, right? So it's 1 times 1 equals 1, like 1/2 plus 1/2, or what was it? Yeah, 1 times 1 equals 1, but it's not 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1, because what happens if that other half isn't there anymore? Like what happens when your significant other, I don't know, like God forbid, like has to go somewhere, or like you guys are separated for a time? Like what happens then, right? Are you no longer whole? Okay, I think that's all I have to say today. I'm hoping that one day Zach and I will be able to have just like a Q&A about our relationship. Maybe that will help you guys. And yeah, okay, God bless. Bye. Love you.